Hello everyone, we are harvesting on Gelvin Valley, wonderful map made by Wild Wes for Farming Simulator 15. We are towards the evening and still harvesting this little field here. I think I'm going to switch to the combine to help him negotiate the hill. Not that the hired help needs... Oh, you know something? I'm just noticing we are running low on fuel. Alright, come on. We can do better than that. Let's get this down, and here, let's climb the hill. Shot of coming up this steep hill. You can even hear the wind blow in the background. And kind of an interesting piece here. It's going to get cut off. I'm trying to help it kind of around the top. Yeah, there we're cutting it off here. Add a little section to complete. Maybe the next round coming up here, we'll try to come back in here and finish cutting it here. Yeah, it starts to get a little wonky when it goes around and around. Let me just take it off a higher mode. Back over here, get it going again. Cut this steep hill. Whoops. Oh, it's probably expecting me to use IC controls. That's probably what's going on. Alright, then we'll head down over here. Let's get it going again. Alright. Hopefully, wherever our tractor ended up, it will be able to find us. Yeah, we got just a little sprig of barley up there. We'll catch on the next pass. You know, I probably really should have finished that up there. Oh well. There'll be another round. Well, last episode I talked about a new dog that our family got after the tragic death of Ebony back in September of 22, so a couple of years back. Lost her unexpectedly, got run over, and then at Christmas Eve we picked up a new little puppy that we named Ember. She probably was mainly chocolate lab, although she was coal black in color, and she had a little Rottweiler in her, just a tiny bit. I think it was enough to shave her paws. She had massive paws. Ended up being a fairly large dog. And I thought she had something else in her too, I don't recall. But it was mainly chocolate or black lab and just a dab of Rottweiler. Just a sweet dog and definitely a wonderful addition to our family. Hold on, tractor. Are you going to know what to do? Curling around. I think you're full. Need to find the field entrance. Don't run over the combine on your way out. There you go. Good lad. Good job. We'll go back to our combine here. I like the view in the field a little better. Let me turn this back on. Try to straighten this out just a little bit. Somehow when you do auto combine, it makes all these little bumps and bulges in here. I'm not sure why that is. Which makes it a little less efficient, you know, when it's trying to get the job done. Alright. Alright, we'll turn him loose. There's probably other bumps and bruises up there. Anyway, at some point here, let's see, what was it? Earlier this year, and it's 2024 as I record this. Oh, goodness. March, April. I don't even remember. Maybe it was February. I don't recall exactly. My daughter pays us a special visit. My daughter, who lives in Kansas, or she did, now I think she's in Missouri. She had a couple dogs that she rescued from a shelter, and one of them, she said, needed to be an outside dog. You know, both of our dogs we have at home are outside dogs. You know, we have them in kennel overnight, you know, for when they sleep, but otherwise they're outdoors all the time, you know, so they have lots of play area, and so they can do whatever they want to do. Occasionally we'll bring them into our house, but because, you know, of a lot of allergies and things that I have, and I think some others in our family, we're not able to just long term have them in our home. So they're mainly outside dogs, and my daughter knows it is. Well, her dogs, because she lives, you know, in town, have had to be inside dogs. And she doesn't have the same allergies, you know, that I do. So she had 2 dogs, and it's anybody's guess as to what breed they are. I would call them both mutts, full pure grade mutts. But one was Quigley. She's kind of tan brown color, and this is the one that my daughter said really needed to be an outside dog. And it's like, well, how do you know that? And it's what she would notice is that every time, you know, when they'd be sitting in the house, it was just hard to see her dog constantly looking out the window, wanting to be there, watching the squirrels in the trees, knowing she couldn't chase them. You know, she would obediently stay in the house or whatever. But that's how my daughter says, you know, I'm probably not giving the dog, you know, what she truly needs. So, you know, at some point I know she talked to us and said, you know, would you be able to keep her? You know, how would we go about taking her to Oregon, you know, where we live? And finally, what she just decided to do was to take a special trip. She and one of her girlfriends who flew back there with her, they came out in a car. Whose car? You know, I don't even know. Maybe it was her car. And, oops, I didn't cut that little sprig right there. Snap that off. There we go. And they brought Quigley out. And she made the trip, and you know what? She fit in with our family so well. And now all of a sudden we had 3 dogs. You know, my wife and I were kind of joking that, you know, we were becoming 101 Dalmatians. And those dogs have powerful appetites. They'll eat you out of house and home, as it were. But Quigley fit right in. Now, why are you coming up here for just half a windrow? I don't understand why there's that bulge. Anyways. Oh. Where is... Oh, he's on the way back. So we had ourselves a Quigley. So for a while we had 3 dogs here, and you know, the other 2 got used to them. You know, Ember, like I said, not a mean bone in her body. She was very welcoming to Quigley. Empress, the other dog that we had, the one that growled at Ember when we first brought her around, was a little bit aloof for a while with Quigley, but eventually came to accept her too. You know, and in some ways, Quigley was better socialized, so you can almost tell that she'd been with her mother longer than Ember had. Let me come up here to my tractor, make sure it's going to make it into the field. That's coming on its way. And so there we were. We had 3 dogs and just a hoot. I think I mentioned in the previous video when I would come home and play tug of war with Ember. I loved doing that, and now I eventually figured out that Quigley also loved the rope, and if you did it just right, you could get both dogs pulling on the rope on opposite ends of it, and it was just a hoot to watch them play tug of war, with each other. But, and as some people listening are probably waiting for the shoe to drop, we weren't going to have 3 dogs for long, and we didn't know it at the time, but something happened, and we still to this day don't know what it was. And I'm trying to remember the date. Was it May? No, it wasn't May. Maybe it was April. Oh, no, maybe it was May. Early May 3rd, maybe. Almost the same day of the month, that Ebony died. Ember also passed. And it's still devastating when I think back on it. My wife, one particular day, was away from home and coming back to home, kind of back and forth. So each time you come home, of course, the dogs rush out to greet her. And Ember was behaving perfectly normal, just a fun-loving, dopey lab, like she always was. Well, then at some point, my wife comes home, and she notices Ember is sitting in one of the flower beds at home, just sitting there. And when my wife went up to her, noticed that Ember was just quivering and shaking and couldn't control her limbs. And, she's a very active dog otherwise, so the fact that she was sitting there indicated something was wrong. And obviously all of her tremors and everything also indicated something was, very wrong. And, if you Google dog tremors, you'll probably see any number of things. But, one of the first things my wife did was immediately get my daughter, who lives in Kansas, on the line and tell her what's going on. And she said that it sounded like some kind of poison. My daughter is a vet tech, and actually she works in an emergency clinic for animals, so has seen things like this, over the years, and has some experience in knowing what to do. Well, my poor wife, I was at work at the time. I didn't know any of this was going on, and I wish she would have called me to come home and help her. My wife has rheumatoid arthritis and was kind of in pain, and so she on her own managed to load, she says, I don't know how I managed to load a 70-pound dog, into the back of the car to take her to the animal hospital. And tremoring the whole way, she said she could hear her, hitting the door of the car back there, involuntarily or whatever, and seizing. And I think it was particularly traumatic for my wife because, we have a daughter who suffered from some seizure disorders, when she was a little chirp, and she doesn't have it anymore. But I remember those times too. It was horrible, horribly traumatic when you see someone you love, one of your children, shaking and convulsing, and there's not a doggone thing you can do about it. And so to see that again, this time in a dog, I think for my wife, she just linked the two, and so it was just horrible for her, and I feel really bad she had to go through that alone. But eventually she called me, told me what happened, so Amber was at the dog hospital, or emergency clinic, or whatever they call that. I hardly knew there was such a thing. Oh boy, you know what? Let me come over. I'm going to need to tab over to here. I need some sauce. So I was at work when she called. My wife had to go to work later on, and I wondered, well, do I need to come into the clinic, you know, to be with Ember or whatever. And no, you go home. And they were going to keep her overnight and try to get the tremoring to stop. Well, after, you know, I think my wife went to work, and I still remember sitting at the computer here, like I do many times in the evening, and, you know, doing whatever I do here, and wondering how she was doing. I think I texted my wife at some points, like, if you heard anything from, you know, the place where we took her, and, you know, my wife hadn't, and until she was almost all the way home, and she gets a call finally from, you know, the place where the dog was, and they said, you know, she just had a massive seizure, and nothing of the drugs, you know, we've given to her to try to counteract her tremors are working. She's still tremoring horribly, and, you know, we're trying, you know, we aren't having much success. So my wife, I think, said, you know, please, you know, I'm just almost all the way home. Can I get home, and then I'll call you back? And of course, when she got home, you know, and we talked about it, I mean, it's just a horrible decision to have to make. You know, we basically visited there, we called our daughter again, and, you know, they had put thousands of dollars of, you know, medications into her, and none of it was helping. You know, so when you do that and aren't successful, well, you basically have some hard choices to make, right? Oh, trying to bend around a tree. Let me try to. Oh, and I wasn't quick enough to try to take care of this top part over here. I think there's a little bit up here. Let me just go get this while we're waiting for No. We already took care of that. Never mind. I just need to help the guy make the corner. Sneak down back over the hill here. You would never do this in real life, but I'm gonna do it here. At least I don't think you would. You'd probably cut in from the top. Higher you go. So it was, you know, my wife and I went to this. It's a 24-hour clinic where they had our big dog Ember, and we went in. It was nearly midnight, and went in there, and, you know, we had called them in advance too, and, you know, said, is now the time, you know, when you think of putting a dog down. You know, I don't even like that term, put it down, you know. But anyway, for lack of a better term, I think we all know what that means, you know, to put a dog to sleep. Maybe that's a little better terminology. But they said, yeah, it's time to consider those options, you know, because, you know, like I say, we spent thousands trying to save her, and it wasn't having an effect. So I still remember, you know, my wife and I, when we went in there, and, you know, to see Ember, she was just not really convulsing, just tremoring, and I think they did have her sedated, so she was at least out of it, but her eyes looked strange, and, you know, we weren't sure that even if more time was taken, these are things you just never know. You know, would she ever be the same Ember that we remembered from before? Or would she come out of it as a totally different dog? Or most likely not even come out of it at all. I mean, my daughter later, she looked at the invoice, you know, that we had received, you know, for the cost of all this, and she said, you know, it wasn't for lack of trying. You know, they threw everything that they had at it, and she said they did exactly what she would have expected them to do, and it just wasn't enough. So, maybe one way to look at it is it was Ember's time, as hard as that is, for the rest of us, to take. It was, I guess, it was her time, and so, to go in there and see her just trembling, and not able to respond, and trying to pet her and everything, and all her limbs are just moving. Just it was bizarre. I've never seen anything like it, but as I understand it, that's an indicator that she had got into some kind of poison. Just what it was, haven't a clue. We had the two other dogs at home, and they're fine. Nothing has ever manifested that we're aware of. Back when we had the other two dogs, well, I say other two dogs, when we had Empress and Ebony, when they were puppies, we had some slug bait or something out, and that was bad news. They somehow got into some of that, and so I wasn't home for that either. But just like a kid, when they get into something they're not supposed to eat, you with a dog, you induce vomiting, so they give up the contents of their stomach and aren't harmed, by whatever they've ingested. And we could have done that maybe with Ember too, but the trouble was nobody was home to see it happen, and by the time my wife did get home, it was too late, and poor Ember was already convulsing and tremoring and everything in the flower bed. So just one of those things. I went in the air with my wife, and as we saw that the air, it helped finalize a decision that this we would have to let her go, and so we did. And the doctor, the dogs had an IV in her already, and she took out the medication that was going in, and she put something else in there. She said, "Don't worry, it'll be very quick." And wow, was it ever quick. Within seconds. I have no idea what it was, but I was just blown away, by how quickly, Ember just all of a sudden stilled. There was no more tremors, and, basically I think her heart stopped. I think that's what that medication did, or whatever they put in. Just blew me away how quickly, an animal can be, put to sleep like that. And so I'm at least comforted by that, that it was quick. Hopefully no pain to her. But the fact that we couldn't bring her home with us, and of course we go outside and it starts to rain, all the stereotypical bad. I mean, it's just, these things don't seem to happen on a beautiful sunny morning. They happen at night when it's rainy and nasty out, and it just put kind of a pall over our family again, having lost another one. And I mean, we've my wife was trying to be lighthearted about it when we came home. It's like, well, now maybe I can actually put out some flower pots, and nobody will bother them. And it's like, yeah, well, maybe so. And it's true. In the days since, there's any number of things we've been able to do. We've been slowly replanting things in the flower beds and whatnot, and eventually was pulling up stumps to trees. We didn't do it at the time because, I mean, why? I mean, just as well let her chew them into the ground, if we're not going to be able to have any trees or bushes around. So, in time, in the months since then, we've gone through the effort of starting to replant and what have you, and we still have two dogs, two puppies, and maybe quickly showed up at just the right time. God maybe knew what was coming and provided that as a blessing to our family. So we still have two around, but kind of like with the loss of Ebony, I still miss Ember. I miss Ebony too. It's just she was a unique personality. We loved her while we had her, and now, of course, we no longer have her. And it's just, it's life. It's one of those things. I'm not saying it's, we're forever crushed or any of that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if I could choose to have her back, I think I would definitely choose it. You know, even with all the destruction around, I think my wife was the same way. I know she was horribly frustrated many times, that the dog, Ember was so destructive. But what do you do? Like I say, Ember did not have a mean bone in her body. She didn't know she was being destructive. It's just kind of how she was. And anyway, I think I would take her back with open arms, warts and all. And truth be told, we're kind of that way as human beings. And of course human beings are different too, but there's cantankerous people in life, and maybe their family members, maybe life has treated them harshly, and so it puts a layer of crust on them that they have that we wonder how it got there, and maybe they have a temper. We're all different too, but when the person passes and is gone, everybody misses them typically, and you would have them back even if they could, be cantankerous with you one more time. You would gladly have them back. And maybe it's that way too, even with a pet. I don't know. Let me see if I can hire it now with this. So I wasn't anticipating we'd have to say goodbye to another dog so soon, but as it turns out, we did. And if anybody listening to this knows anything about poisons for dogs, we eventually learned, like I say, we don't have any chemicals around the house. We don't have, after that thing with this, what are you going down here for? After that thing with the slug bait with the other two dogs, well, we learned any of that stuff, that we use in the yard, we kept stored under lock and key over in our shed, which is outside of the area, that the dogs are able to roam in. So all the poison, so-called poison, is somewhere else. So we are still baffled as to what it could have been that would have poisoned her. Or was it poison? Was it something else? And like I say, I'm not a vet. My daughter had no idea. I asked her, I said, well, can you ask the hospital place, the animal hospital, to perform an autopsy and figure out, what may have been ingested? And I think she told me, no, they don't typically do that. You would have to take it to a university where they study that kind of thing. And so it's like, oh boy. So in other words, if you really want to know, you're going to have to pay for it. And I'm not averse to paying for stuff, but I don't know if even they would have been able to figure it out, because in terms of what they had ingested, apparently none of the tests, blood tests or whatever, that they had on Ember when she was in there were able to discern, what toxic thing she may have taken in. So I don't know, maybe you would have done something different. We weren't curious enough to want to go through that, because basically then you have some other logistical concerns. When the dog is passed and you have the body, and you somehow have to get the body to the university. The university for the ad here is about a 45-minute drive south. I suppose it could have been done, but who knows how much it would have cost to do all that. So we opted as a family not to take that step. But I remain curious as to what might have happened, or was it some kind of an insect? I don't know. All I know is the other two dogs are totally unaffected, so whatever Ember got into, they didn't. And, neither one of our other dogs chew on things, or nor are they as destructive? So we're able to have packages delivered to home now, and the dogs leave them alone. So yeah, I just don't know. I remember, going around the place trying to see if there was anything, that would pop out as being foreign material. At one point I found a bunch of styrofoam. I don't know if a dog can ingest styrofoam or little bits of it, while they're chewing on it. And this was something I think Ember had chewed. Would styrofoam do something like that? I just don't know. And so, there's some mysteries here that we'll probably never get to the bottom of. But definitely not the funnest days we've ever had, and having to say goodbye to another dog. And like I say, I'm sure a number listening to this, it's probably something other pet owners, not probably, I know it's something other pet owners have had to go through themselves. And it's just, when you have an animal that becomes such a fixture as part of the family, and we didn't even have Ember, let's see, fall of 22, oh wait a minute here now, I guess we had her all of 23 and part of 24, so hardly a year and a half did we have her. But was she part of her family? You bet she was. Like I say, warts and all, just like in the family, we accept each other the way we are. That's just kind of the way it is, and that's how we do with our dogs too. So anyway, we are almost done with this field up here. Just a little bit more. I think we'll probably finish it off cam, and then we'll be ready to come in here with the windrower and get it ready for baling, and we'll take our combine to the next field. So we'll have a movement of a field happen probably in the next episode. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride, and I wish you a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.